Good day, friends. Let's talk about being grateful, which is a common thread, obviously, in many traditions, many cultures, many religions, a common thread through a lot of self-help literature. But we're going to talk about the practical benefits of doing it. Like, literally, there are real benefits to doing it. And in particular, it's partly because people who get this wrong, people who take it for granted, people who didn't see the why underlying why to do it, often wind up in situations where, even if their life is going well, even if they have everything they could ask for, good career, good family, good friends, maybe they're financially secure, etc., still being extremely frustrated and unhappy with life because they don't know the first thing about how to be grateful. And now, one thing that this isn't about, I want to clarify, is that this is not about becoming overly satisfied or content with the world or your situation as it is. It's not about saying that because we're grateful for our current situation, therefore we're not going to try to help fix or address other important situations. Although, if that's indeed the goal, then being grateful is a more useful foundation to build on. So an easy example I like to point to for this is that there will always be more things you could focus on outside of yourself that you don't have access to, that you can't build on, that aren't a part of your life or your experiences or your opportunities, than there are that are. And so the easy example of this is your people that you know, people that you've met, people who are in your network. Whether it's friends and family member you're still in touch with, whether it's coworkers, classmates, former coworkers, former classmates. There are certainly fewer of those, I don't care how many of them you are still in touch with, than there are other people on Earth. There's like 7 billion other people on Earth. I know that you know far less than half of those. And if instead of focusing on being grateful for the friends, connections, colleagues, coworkers, network that we've established so far, if instead of being grateful for that, we fixated on all the many other people, or even just a few, if not numerically, if we just fixated on this celebrity and that famous person and this professor and then that writer, and about, why won't they notice me? Why can't I get an opportunity for them to be a part of my friend group, etc.? Because what would wind up happening is, even if, in the unlikely chance, we got them to transition into the people that we knew, we would put them back into that bin of we take them for granted because they are on the side of people who, when we had them, we already didn't care. We already didn't focus on what was good about it. The same thing can also be said true for health, where no matter what is going wrong with you, and maybe wrong is an unfair way to put that, but whatever ailment, illness, complication, difficulty someone's working through, there are far more things, this time in a good direction, that aren't going wrong with a person than are. And so I find it useful when I'm feeling ill, when I'm feeling, whether it's that I've got a runny nose or a cough, and I've probably mentioned this before because it's a recurring thing in my state of mind. Lots of people, when they have a cough or a sneeze or a headache or a runny nose, think, if only I didn't feel like this, I would be so happy. I just want to breathe normally again. And then as soon as they can, a day or two later, are they happy? Of course not. They take for granted the health that they have. I'm actually happy. That's part of why I'm always so energetic and always so happy about things. But even if I have a runny nose, but I don't have a headache, I actually focus on I'm grateful to not have a headache. If I have a headache, but I don't have a runny nose, I'm grateful at least my nose isn't running. This partly arose from I had some leg surgery related to some lymph nodes for a skin cancer thing I've mentioned before, so not try to drop that on you. That was a long time ago. It was 10 plus years. As far as we know, it's all taken care of by now. But around the time I got a fortune cookie, and it said, don't let the things you can't do get in the way of the things you can. And so even though I was on crutches all summer from that little leg operation, it helped me remember, so I can't run right now. I can't sprint right now. It's hard for me to go up and down stairs. But I can still read, I can still write, I can still use a computer, I can still play video games, I can still talk, I can still listen. There are so many great things I could still do that help me appreciate those rather than fixating on the one thing I couldn't do because of my crutches. But it'd be like not enjoying the immediate access to so many different things technologically, through food access, etc., for how much harder all those things used to be. We were playing a game the other night at Glitch City's networking night where it was a tea game. There were teas. You're trying to, I don't know if you're swapping teas, making teas. I just hung at the table talking. I didn't actually play the game. But in that game, I realized how striking it is that I can just go to the grocery store and for a few dollars buy a box of a whole bunch of tea bags. And that those are things that ships used to cross the ocean and wars would be fought over and people would die and the cost was only accessible to nobility, and goodness, that's gotten easier. And trying to not take that for granted. The ability for you and I to have this kind of interaction through the internet is a thing which a generation ago was unheard of, was science fiction. And trying to not take that for granted. When there's travel, whether you are driving, whether you're on an airplane, whether we're on a train, etc., and there's complications. This is a thing which, unfortunately, I don't want to mention his name. He's got other problems that have come up. It's a point he had made many years ago, but people taking for granted the airplane situations, in which we'll find the littlest thing, the one thing that's not going well. The Wi-Fi is not working on the plane, was the example he would bring up. Again, I don't want to mention who he is. It's unfortunate what he did. But so in a car, if there's an inconvenience, there's an accident, something slows down, it used to cost people their entire lives, maybe literally risking their lives and losing family members, to get just from one coast to the other of the country I live in. To get from one side of the ocean to the other, it wasn't really clear that you would make it. And I say all that stuff not to be absurd or to be anachronistic, but literally to not take for granted how much better things have gotten. Because just like with those friends, where there's fewer people we know than don't know, you can build off the things that are there. Not so much by complaining about the things that are going a little bit out of the way or not quite right. That if we don't appreciate and take value and stock of how to build on the things that we do have access to, then at best we'd be pulling things from the side of things we don't have any access to and then putting them into that bin that we take for granted. The set of things we don't care about, the set of things that we don't find happiness in, the set of things that we don't appreciate. These are also things where there's plenty of folks out there who they feel like the reason why they're not able to do any better, get ahead, career-wise, opportunity-wise, etc., is because of something that they don't have. But many successful game designers, game developers that I know, they've taken what their history was of their career, however modest or unusual its start might have been, or usual. So a nice example, Jesse Schell, professor of Entertainment Technology Center at Carnegie Mellon, game designer of VR games and lots of other interesting things. His career started out as a street juggler. He was an entertainer. But rather than say, oh, I don't have the pedigree, rather than say, I didn't have the same opportunities or I didn't get a head start in electronics, he focused on as a street entertainer, he had to learn how to attract attention, keep attention, maintain attention, figure out how to entertain in a way that appealed to a broad audience. And that sort of charisma, that sort of attitude, that sort of thing was, again, something he was, by being grateful for the experience he had, he was able to build off of it. There are plenty of other people who, in the business world and entrepreneurship, started doing retail sales work or other kind of things where it was very entry level. It was not a position people glorify, but acknowledged, okay, they have experience working with customers because of that. They have experience accepting kind of the rejection process that is sales work. They have experiences that can be built upon by looking at what they had to build on rather than focusing on what they didn't have, rather than focusing on experiences they couldn't build on. And so though looking for a practical benefit out of it may not be the only reason to be grateful, it's also kind of a nice thing for state of mind, for a variety of other things. It is something which I find, again, to go back to these why questions, it helps me do it in a way that I derive other benefits from. And this can also come down to if there are friends we are no longer in touch with, or even family members no longer in touch with, to rather than fixating on the sadness of that, looking for ways to find our happiness in the friends and family that we do still have access to, that are still in our lives, that are still on good terms with us, and so on, because we can build off of those, not from what's missing. When I was starting my second business, one of the things I figured out from the first one was I really got quickly overwhelmed by logistics of stuff like City Hall things, right? Every now and then I just send you this paperwork, things that are kind of intimidating or confusing about certain kinds of I felt myself overburdened by some of the just straight up tracking of accounting stuff. Not even the work of sales or marketing, but the kind of bookkeeping side I did it, but I felt myself overwhelmed by it. I found myself distracted by it. When I was starting my second business, then that's when I figured out, rather than focusing on who I wish I knew or who was in my network or how could I find somebody who would be up for this sort of thing, I instead focused on who I was grateful for had already been in my life, who I was still in touch with, if not recently in touch with. And that was where I've been able to reconnect with my friend Monty, who to this day helps me keep track of the bookkeeping stuff related to GAM Keto. And he was someone who had the relevant background, had history, shared history together, and realizing again, you can build from who you know, you can build from connections you have, you can build from experiences you've had, and you can build in new directions. But you can't build on what's not there. You can't build on who you don't know. You can't build on what's wrong. You can build on what's right. And that's part of it. Being grateful is all about, whether it's something you practice daily, something you practice monthly, practice as part of a annual tradition. I'd like to think should be more often than that. But anyway, that's what I want to focus on today. Just the whys behind being grateful. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great day.